We're here with Augie from Broadcast Team Alpha. He is also part of the Mastermind Connection. He has a book, which I still kept right here, which is The Spiritual Science, the Higher Consciousness Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. Great book. You should all go out there and get it. I keep it by my computer, so while I'm downloading everything, I read it all the time because I'm almost into round 3 of it. So, and that's after that I have to contact Augie, and he's going to let me know what I should do next. But I'm going to drop us off from the stream real quick and let Augie do his thing.
Cool.
All right, guys, let's do it. It's on you, Augie. I'm so glad you're here, man. It's such an honor to have you here and be a part of this. I can't wait to hear what you're going to tell us.
This is going to be so much fun. I haven't met a microphone that I didn't like yet. So
there you go.
All right. Oh man, I feel honored to be here among these people speaking. I'm kind of a newcomer to these kinds of events, and I feel honored to be invited. I really do, because this is it makes me feel good, and it feels like you're doing something right. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you're not supposed to know about, just like we always do on Broadcast Team Alpha. And that's why I wanted to talk about something that every human alive have been wondering about. How can we speak and communicate with dead folks, ghosts, spirits, disembodied entities, thought forms, angels, and maybe even God? How can we do this? Well, since the beginning of time, we have wondered actually what happens after we die. What will it look like afterwards? What kind of stuff do we experience? Who's there to meet us, if anybody? If we had a good luck, there'd probably be a bunch of people there. If we have been a snot, maybe nobody. So what can we expect? Can we communicate and talk with those entities? There's 2 ways to answer that. One of them is the short one, and I'll do that in 2 sentences. The other one is a little more lengthy and technical, and that's going to take the rest of the hour. The first answer is we do not die. I have actually covered this in several radio shows before. And the last one you can find down on broadcastteamalpha.com. You scroll down a little bit and you'll find it. I think it is well established that there is all kinds of things going on after you drop the meat suit, the body, or whatever you call it. Well, what is happening though? We see the pictures of ghosts. We see the videos. We have the voice recordings. Thousands of people have personal, ongoing experiences with departed ones. And I think when it really comes down to it, the only way to deny this is to do like this guy I know. I use him a lot. He goes down to the ocean, take a Dixie cup, scoops up a little bit of water, looks in it, and he says to himself, "Self, whales are supposed to be in the ocean, and I don't see any whales in here, so whales do not exist." Well, maybe not in the Dixie cup, but chances are there is much more to the ocean than what you see in the Dixie cup. Just as there's much more to the universe and existence than what you and me are aware of. So this guy with the Dixie cup, I got to throw a joke in there somewhere. He may not be a moron because that's a medical term for somebody with an IQ of 50. But he's really close to qualifying as an idiot because that's an IQ of 75. So let's think about that. Once we realize that we don't know everything, anything on the outside of what we know could be absolutely anything. We cannot deny all the evidence of spirits or disembodied entities and intelligent thought forms. They're there because we have the evidence. It's just that we refuse to, or I'm not saying we, but science and governments and whoever else think they are anybody, they refuse to recognize what they see because it doesn't fit the agenda. There's even some highly contested scientific evidence to the fact that something leaves the body after we die. And that something has weight. In 1907, there was a doctor in Haverhill, Massachusetts, I think. His name was Duncan McDowell. And he wanted to find out if he could prove that the soul existed. According to the writings of that time, and that includes newspaper articles that was highly written about, over a period of time, he found 6 people that was close to dying. And he placed their bed on a very sensitive industrial scale that could measure weight all the way down to a fraction of an ounce. Actually, it could measure grams. Now, these people in the bed, ready to die, they were observed 24 hours, 7 days a week until they died. And shortly after they died, every one of them, the bed, the person, and everything in it suddenly lost 3/4 of an ounce. For you guys in Europe, that's 21 grams, 22, 23. Something left the body. You can research it, and just for fun of it, Google, actually, no, don't Google. Use DuckDuckGo or anything else. Duncan McDowell. Or proving the soul, or other things like that. You get lots of stuff to read about him and what he did. So I would say don't use Google because the write-ups there are censored, they are altered. Get as close to the source as possible by researching old news articles. They're out there, you can find them. Now, Duncan McDowell, he said because of the loss of weight, the soul left the body, and I have proven that the body have a soul. Well, okay. Later on, of course, we have found that maybe it's the soul that is having a body. Or, more so, it wasn't the soul that left the body. See, the soul is entirely non-physical. It is spiritual in nature, or it is in a quantum existence. It has no physical weight. So it couldn't have been what caused the decrease of 21 grams in that bed. Now, the astral body, on the other hand, has some affinity to gravity. If you ask an astral traveler about this, they may have noticed that once they leave their physical body and go out there and travel and do things and observe things, if they are floating fairly close to the ground, they may see that they are slowly descending to the ground. Actually, it could take, compared to minutes, it could take several minutes to descend maybe a foot. It's very little and very slow. If you're higher in the air, you will never notice this because you don't measure, you don't perceive the distance from where you are to the ground as well. But if you're really close to the ground, you can see it. I have seen this. And when you sink towards the ground, there is no science that I know of that can explain this, except that the astral vehicle has an affinity for gravity. In other words, it is affected by gravity somehow. There is some physical component of the astral vehicle because it does sink towards the ground. Now, that's the only way I can explain it. Of course, the establishment, they will definitely debunk this. There's no such thing. Of course, they haven't been out there. They don't know, but of course, still they know. So you know how that is. Because they cannot explain it. And if they cannot throw it in the air, shoot holes in it, it doesn't exist. If it's not physical, if it's not within the Newtonian science that they claim to be totally accurate by, it doesn't exist. Because, first of all, there's a lot of flaws or lack in the explanations of Newtonian physics. And they don't want to admit ever that they have ever been wrong. So they're not going to say anything about this because ego, I guess. But still, the $64 trillion question, of course, the price has gone up now. It used to be 64 million, but now it's $64 trillion. That question is, how do we communicate with these entities on the outside or the physical on the other side of the veil? Yes, we can. I'm going to explain 5 different ways we can communicate with someone or something that is not physical. This will cover both electronics and using your mind to communicate, and written words. It can be done simply. Some of these, actually 3 of these methods I'm going to explain to you it's easier than falling off a log. And I tell you, that's pretty easy. I used to have a forestry, I know. It's pretty easy to fall off a log, and this is very simple. We can communicate with them. The first thing I like to mention is the Tesla Spirit Radio. And I gotta have some help here. I have some pictures. If there's a way I can share screen, is that possible on this forum? I wonder. Maybe not. Okay, I'll just talk about it. The Tesla Spirit Radio is something that you can go to YouTube. Put in Tesla Spirit Radio. You probably have about 50 different people that is built this very simple electronic device that will let you communicate with spirits or other entities. And it's very, very simple. Even if you, let's say you have a friend that understands a little bit about electronics, you buy the parts, it's going to cost you about $25, maybe not that much, and give it to him. and there's several videos out there that explains exactly what the parts are and how to put it together. It's really very simple. It's just that I don't want to take time to do it, but someone else can. And once you build this thing, you can have some really interesting experience. If it is built right, this particular type of radio receiver and transmitter works about 100% of the time. See, in 1901, Nikola Tesla created a radio that he was able to hear voices with. And at the time, there were no radio stations in the world. The first radio station came into existence much later. It was called KDKA, and it was in 1920 that the first radio station came online. And now there were radios before that, but they were mostly used for research and for other things, with universities and stuff experimented with it, trying to figure out how to split frequencies so they can get more, bandwidth and so on. Now, after Tesla created the radio, he commented in one of his interviews, and he says, I'm gonna read this because I want to have it accurate, because this is good. Nikola Tesla said about this radio that he had built to talk with spirits through: "My first observations positively terrified me, as there was present in them something mysterious, not to say supernatural, and I was alone in my laboratory. The sounds I'm hearing and listening to at first sound like human voices conversing back and forth in a language I do not understand." That's what Nikola Tesla said. Now, also remember, Nikola Tesla was a well-educated man. He understood and could speak fluently in 7 languages. And at that time, in 1901, there had to be, at the time, someone that thinks they know the estimated less than 20 radio transmitters in the country, only for experimental and research purposes. And of course, when Marconi found out about this, he grabbed the idea and the patent, and he stole it from Tesla and published it, and the world think that he invented the radio, which is a big fat lie. Now, of course, these voices that Nikola Tesla heard has later been confirmed to be spiritual entities or non-physical entities speaking through that Tesla spirit radio. And now that is confirmed by people having two-way conversations with entities coming through the Tesla spirit radio. They have been able to find dead relatives. They have been able to find dignitaries. One guy on YouTube says he was communicating with Nikola Tesla, and they were exchanging technical information. Now, we can be asking questions, and whoever is on the other side, they will be answering those questions. This is incredible. How come nobody knows about this? If you know a little bit about electronics, you can make one. And I don't understand enough to do it. I am right close to that definition of that guy, with 75 IQ, and when it comes to electronics. I don't understand it, so I'm not going to do it. And sooner or later, I'll probably have a friend do it. It would be kind of fun to have. And I can see the circuitry and how it would work, but what the different components will do and how to put it together, I'm not going to take the time to do it. Now, there is also a website that you can read about how to do it and what kind of results you have. I'm going to mention that website because I've been there quite a bit, because they have a lot of other things also. Technology of the pyramids, spiritual technology, and a lot of stuff. And that is www.unariumwisdom.com. unariumwisdom.com. I'll spell that. UNARIUMWISDOM.com /Tesla Teslas spirit radio. Then you can see about the spirit radio. And then there's something else that has a lot of credibility. This invention on how to communicate with the supernatural has been patented. I'm going to say that again. It has been patented. Now, I know a little bit about patents. I am a patent holder. And you don't get a patent unless you have a working model, even if you can't explain it. A working model will suffice to get a patent. Or drawings and descriptive written science that explains the invention based on credible science. So how did they get a patent on communicating with spirits? Well, this is something that they're doing at the University of Arizona right here in Tucson, under the supervision of Dr. Gary Schwartz. They have created a circuitry with an antenna that are feeding it through a computer, so you can type a question and you get an answer through the computer. Now, the only answers they can get at this time are yes or no. And the answers, they are light coded. They're coming back in light codes. They have two lights hooked up to the computer. They ask the question, and it has to be a question that only can be answered by a yes or a no. The answer come back red, that means a no. And if it comes back green, it is yes. If they have done so much testing of this, tested the computer or whoever's at the other end, or whatever is at the other end answering these questions, to find out that those red and green lights are never wrong. But they do get answers. They're not able to prove exactly, positively identify who's at the other side yet. And they haven't gotten to the point where they can actually have two-way communications, but they're working on it. And this will be researched more, so it will become common knowledge within the next probably 5 years. And this particular project is called the Soul Phone, SOUL phone. Google Soul Phone, and you're going to have some interesting reading. Can you imagine being able to communicate with someone on the other side of the veil? Anyone in your choosing? That could be Nikola Tesla, Gandhi, Buddha, the guy that some of you know as Jesus, your mom, if she's gone. Now, there is another thought to this soul phone that I have developed in my mind, and that is that Since they are communicating outside of the physical into the universal mind, they may not be communicating with an entity or a spirit at all. They could be doing like quantum computers do, interact with the universal mind that knows everything from the future, past, and present. And they get answers from the universal mind. That is one other thing here. When I was planning this, I was in meditation and asked, who are they communicating with? The answer I got was no one and all. So that could be that they are communicating with the all or the universal mind. But communicating with your mom, if she's departed, it's going to be possible in the future. Probably not very long into the future. I am perfectly convinced if you're below the age of 80, you could be able to do this. Another thing, they may be communicating also across timelines before the separation of the timeline that goes on to 5D. Because outside, you have access, you are in different timelines there too, but you have access to other timelines. So it gets really deep and complicated here. And that's what they're at the University of Arizona is trying to figure out. So follow the development of Dr. Schwartz and what he's doing here. Google, well, duck it ever so often. And it's going to turn very interesting. You can read more about this also at, thesoulphonefoundation.org. thesoulphonefoundation.org. You're going to like it. And then there's another way to communicate and see the spiritual worlds. Let me explain that by an example. There is a guy in France, or actually I could probably say there was a guy in France, and he was able to take pictures of disembodied spirits just about every time he tried. This was back in the 1960s, and I read about this before I left Europe to came to the United States. What he did was very simple, and we can all do this. And it is a very simple piece of equipment that you can use to do it. In fact, it turned to somewhat of a scary experiment for him because he took pictures of people standing and walking around a day or two after they died. When he was showing off these pictures to his friends around his village where he was there in southern France, he scared the chocolate out of them. And they couldn't understand, and they thought he was working with Satan, so they turned on him. He had to move out of town, he said in the article, otherwise they probably would have killed him. It was a very Catholic area right there, and you know how they are. They don't want anything that is not in their big black book. Superstition, dogma, and religion, wears the same shoes. So they do not really know much because they only know their own dogma. Now, they accused him of working with Satan, and that was probably their way to get out of trying to explain it to themselves. And you can imagine how that went over. Well, I wouldn't have wanted to be in his shoes either. Let me explain what he did. He built and created a Tesla coil. And I'm not sure how many volts it was putting out, but from what I remember of the picture, It was standing on the ground. When he was standing next to it, it reached to about his knee or possibly a little higher. And it looked like the Tesla coil was probably a little bit thick like this. I don't exactly know how, but it could have at least 1,000,000 volts in it or more. I'm not sure. Now, he took the Tesla coil out to the local graveyard sometimes. He put the Tesla coil right on a freshly dug grave of a guy that died a day or three earlier and was in the ground. Then he walked away 20 feet and started to take pictures. Very often he could capture the guy who was laying dead in the ground, but the pictures show him standing up next to the grave, looking at him. That could be scary. I'm not sure what kind of camera he had. It looks like a box, kind of. And back then, you know, the film that you put into that box, it came on a roll, and probably a 122, 25 or something like that, or maybe even 35 millimeters by then. I don't know. But the film was lead based. Now that's important because lead has an affinity to be able to pick up higher vibratory light than what your eyes can do. And of course, picture like this did not go very well, you know, in his town. So he moved, and I don't know what happened to him. But for people who has access to a Tesla coil, if you have the guts to do it, go try it. Or you could do it around your home or in places. If you know a house in a neighborhood or anywhere that says to be haunted, go there, set up the Tesla coil, start taking some pictures. You might amaze yourself. The technology is there, because if it works once for someone, it should work again, plus or minus, for someone else. You can do those things, and it's fairly simple, actually. If it was me, though, I would get at least a Tesla coil that have at least 500,000 volts, because it sets up a plasma bubble around it. The more voltage, make sure the amperage is really low, otherwise you kill yourself. So the voltage should be maybe 1,000,000 or more. It sets up a plasma bubble that is quite large around it. Everything inside of that bubble could be caught on the film. Make sure you walk away for a good distance to be outside of the bubble. Because if you're in the bubble may affect the film, and that could throw colors, it could throw the film off, so it may not be possible to see what you took pictures of. And there is another way to talk with departed ones. I also created a communication device that a radionic computer builder at Copen Labs in England gave me the design for. I love to take credit for this one, but I can't. He did it. I did not come up with this one, but Barry Kraft at Copen Labs did. They make a radionic computer that can heal people at a distance. They can rid of bugs in the crops. They can create vitamins out of distilled water just by imposing the vibratory rate of the vitamin in distilled water, so the distilled water have the same effect on your body as a vitamin pill would do. I know that as a fact because we did that back in Omaha. So I used to have a Mark 12 radionic computer with, I forget how many, it's a whole bunch of dials, and you got to go through them all. You rub the stick plate until your fingers stick, and then you leave the next one, go to the next one, and you tune the computer to the vibratory rate of whatever you put in the well. And then you go to work and transmit that frequency. So we did some really neat stuff with it. In fact, I put a picture of the parted one in the well of my radionic computer and tuned the machine to the vibratory rate of that picture. And we were not consistent with that with the computer, but when we used that contraption that he told me about and I put together, then we were able to get some voices on the recorder. And of course, the entity being there did not see, or he didn't quite know what was going on. But it seemed like he was as confused as we was, because probably not being able to communicate. And the contraption that I put together, I'll show you because I have a drawing of it. That's the best I can do here when I cannot share screen. We took coat hangers. I welded them together. There was 4 sides to it, so they kind of looked like this. Actually, they were just standing out like this, but up like this, and perfect in 90 degree angles. And I created a metallic funnel. Let me see here if we can see this. This is an antenna collector. There's a new aluminum funnel that I put around those coat hanger wires. And let me see if I can point to this. It went up this way and it went up the other way. And then seen from the top, it looks like this. But here's the wires, and here's the aluminum foil that they put around it. So actually, it looks like a funnel with a hole at the bottom. And then this is really simple method. You see, from the fifth dimension into ours, there is some communication going on that is possible to hear. And what we did, we put this funnel right over the microphone on a tape recorder. You could use another recording device. I have one here. But if you put that funnel, that magnifies any kind of sound that you can hear in the room. Just like, people standing with the funnels and speaking, and everybody can hear better. Same thing here. You put the funnel over the microphone and then listen. We sat there for about 20 minutes one time. And we can't hear anything, but the microphone for the recorder picked up something, and it sounded like voices. And we heard the word what many times. And there were other words I cannot really remember. This is probably around 27, 28 years ago. In fact, I still have the contraption somewhere. And this is something that can very well work. See, from the 5th dimension or outside of the physical, they can see you, but you cannot normally see them. Now, they don't hear you very well because there's no air where they are to carry the voice vibration. And our eyes are not designed to see anything in that higher vibration normally, unless we use a Tesla coil and others. There's aura goggles and things you can use to see things outside of the physical. But you can also train yourself for that. But it does not change the eyes. You can start to see the aura around people and around entities, but you don't see it with your eyes. You see it with your mind. Since they can see you, you can also leave them written messages. And that is really good. Now, that is more of a one-way communication from you to them. Sometimes you can get them to do what you ask for, so you can get confirmation that they did see the message. Write down written messages. Leave them messages. Remember, just because they're dead, in quotes, don't make them dumb. They still can read, and they can look into the physical. That is just like looking in the mirror for them. You are outside of their reality, they're outside of your reality. So it's like looking in the mirror. So when you write the messages, write it backwards. That'll make it easier for them to understand. Use large lettering, maybe black markers on white paper, so you have a good contrast. Because what I have seen in the lower astral worlds, there is very little color. It's kind of grayish and dull. And there is color, but not as brilliant as here. And darker colors mostly. In the higher vibrations, everything is vibrant and colorful. In fact, there are colors we have not discovered yet. Colors that are alive, phasing in and out of each other. Unstable colors of things. That gets interesting. If you know you have something going on in the house that is not physical, this would be a good way to start. Leave them a message. Write it back. If you think you have a ghost in the house, write that message. Tell them you should not be here. This is not your home. Or write something else. Go to the light. Go home. Some of them that is out there, they do not even know they're dead physically. So if it doesn't work, maybe try give them another message. You died physically. Go to the light. You can also try to make contact by asking them, show yourself. That is usually hard for them, but they can show themselves in dreams, because then they can contact your mind easier. There is another thing that you can do that sometimes would work. I've actually heard one that did this, and that's why I'm mentioning it. He wrote him a message. He said, hold my hand. And he sat there like this and held his hand out. And he could feel something in his hand. Now, that could be scary too. It's kind of like, don't ask if you don't want to hear the answer. If you do this and have it, just consider it a success and nothing scary. Another thing you can ask for, turn the TV off, turn the radio on. Usually these disembodied entities are very good with electronics. And one quick thing I want to mention, and that is out of body travel, astral travel. And it is not that hard to do. Practice every day for 30 days, and I'm almost sure that you can do this. You can walk out of your physical body, see what's there. In fact, I taught a class on this on the Mastermind Connection, and you can find it on broadcastteamalpha.com. Go and look under classes, and you will find that class on astral travel. It goes over 4 sessions over 4 weeks. Practice, and you can do that. So I see that I'm about out of time here. So hey guys, are we? Am I supposed to continue, or what do we do? Oops, you're muted.
That's right.
That's right.
You could talk about astral travel if you'd like. We still got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll stay on with you. We could do it together.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, and the thing is that if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, you will find the classes, and this is for the members of Broadcast Team Alpha. So you have to go to not broadcast, members of the Mastermind Connection, and you can very easily become a member over there, and then you can participate in our mastermind sessions where we do some incredible things. And
we've got it up in the comments, so all you have to do is click on it in the comments. It should take you right to Broadcast Team Alpha.
Okay, good deal. All right. And another thing that I wrote a book on how to use your mind in ways that you normally would be thinking is impossible. There it is. Spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. I even talk in the back of it. You may have gotten to that, Rob, when they actually teach people how to do time travel. And
yep, I've gotten there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that everybody kind of roll their eyes when you hear about time travel. Well, yeah, that seems like the thing to do, but it is alive and well, and it can be done as well as astral travel. A lot of people roll their eyes on that too, but it can be done.
I do time traveling. Aage?
Yeah.
I do time traveling. I do it almost on a daily basis. I guess it's called self-hypnotism. But when I go into my lucid dreaming or daydreaming or whatever it is that you want to call it, I take myself back into time of trauma, or even a happy time, and I go back there, and either I fix my problem, or I harness the energy from that happy moment, and I bring that with me to the present. And so yeah, time travel is very real. It happens. Maybe physically we can't time travel into the past or the future, but spiritually and consciously we sure can.
That's a fact.
Wow, I love to hear that, because I'm not the only crazy one here. That's great. Oh, that's good. But
no, come on, Aage. The information that you gave us was incredible. Incredible today.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I want to say one thing about time travel, and that is what you are doing is phenomenal. And that is that you taught yourself how to do this. Everybody can do this. But one step beyond is go to Broadcast Team Alpha, and I forget where it is right now, but in my picture gallery, I have photographic evidence of time travel. There is 2 green pictures next to each other. They're taken at the same time in 2 different timelines, but those pictures are different. And I don't remember. There's 5,000 pictures in there. I think it's somewhere around page 17 or something like that. You will find it. You can look for it. But that is actual, because there's a date stamp on it. You can see it. Those
That's
pictures.
wild. That's wild.
I did a mind experiment, and I brought myself back to a previous time when I took a picture. I tried to get the same time, but I missed it with a minute and 5 seconds. And what I see on those pictures, one picture has totally drenched everything, and it's total. I mean, there's water everywhere, and the other one is bone dries. One has leaves on the pictures, and the other has no leaves on the trees, and they're 1 minute and 5 seconds apart. Just go look at it.
That's wild.
Man, I'm gonna travel back in time to January and cool off.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'll be right with you.
Yeah, it's hot. Holy geez, we're not accustomed to this kind of heat up here, right? Because we're built for winter. My God, it's so hot. Almost
Yeah, we got it's pushing it pretty hard here today.
Okay, let me just check on something, and I'll. Yeah, it's 108 degrees here. I'll be right with you.
Let's go. We'll be right back. We're going to January 2nd, January 1st, do a polar bear dip.
Yeah, right. That's it. It's been hot over there, huh, Omar? You've been hot all day today, bud, huh?
Oh yeah, for the last 2 weeks, it's been like 44 degrees. We had like 44 degrees for 10 days straight, and now it's been like 35, 36, 37 for like the last week, and we're not built for that kind of hot, right? We don't even have air conditioners because
I'm not built for that hot either.
Summer here for 2 months of the year.
No, this is, but it's okay. We're gonna be all right.
Now, Aage, do you think that when, let's say, when you're, lucid dreaming or daydreaming, or like astral travel, I guess it would be almost to an astral travel. Do you think it's possible if, let's say, you and I got into the same bubble of consciousness or the same wavelength of consciousness, that you and I could travel together?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Past or into the future and share that experience together once we get into that same wavelength, right? Say, if I went to say, hey, Aage, I want to show you what I was like 10 years old, and then we get into that meditative state of mind, and then when we connect, I can take you back to that particular moment. Do you think that's possible to do?
Well, first of all, that could not be a physical time travel.
Yeah.
Because there are physical differences between us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we go out of the body, then let's say I could do an astral journey. I could meet up with you, and we could go someplace together. That I have done before. So let's say you want to go have a look at the moon. It's not a nice place necessarily, but you got to kind of know where to go. There are places like there's just like getting into the White House in Washington as an astral traveler is almost impossible. There will be somebody meeting you and tell you no. You're not.
Do they have somebody guarding?
Yeah.
Like for instance, sites like that, government buildings like that, where
astral
they have
guards.
Yeah, like psychic intuitives or somebody like that. That's like on call and standing there, make sure that no one can come in, steal secrets, or whatever the case may be. There's things like that happening.
Absolutely, and the same thing with the Pentagon. The CIA are the ones, I believe, that is they have
just about to mention that.
Astral traveler guarding their sacred places.
You know where that stems from, right?
They're the ones who went back a million years on Mars. They're the ones who said, you don't have to worry about Mars right now. We have to worry about Mars from a million years ago, right? Or is it a million years in the future? I think you told me that, Aage.
Remember when the military was using that stuff back in the day?
Yep.
And they had a whole group of guys that came in. Yeah.
Is that part of Project Blue Book or Project Camelot or something like that, where the CIA was using astral travelers after they found out that Russians were employing things like that?
Well, they were looking for certain wartime places, missile silos and things of that nature, and they were astral projection, but then again, they tell you, well, it never really worked right. But I don't believe that. I honestly think it worked. I think it worked just fine. That's what I think it did.
Well, I know it worked fine because down in the videos on Broadcast Team Alpha, Norilov and I, we interviewed Russell Targ that ran the CIA remote viewing
Remote
project
viewing.
for
Yep.
3 years.
Yep.
He explained all about how they did it, and he explained what they were able to do. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That worked perfect.
Yep. And that's ironic how that works, because they never left the building or the room that they were in, you know,
Right.
but they could draw diagrams and everything just like a photo copy on a machine, and
Yeah.
identify all kind of stuff, including people, the number of people, miles, distance, everything, the color of buildings, the color of cars. I
Yep.
mean, it's just phenomenal. So it has to work. I mean, it's how do you do that?
And in fact, quantum mechanics actually explained why it worked. Because
Right.
you're tapping into the unified field where everything past, present, and future is. You lock in on something in that field and bring it back out with you home.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a question from one of the audience here, and it says, "Can they prevent you from remote viewing the same way they can prevent you from astral travel?" I'm thinking he's thinking about like the government, if they could halt
Yeah.
you from actually, remote viewing at all.
Wouldn't you say that's almost the same thing, though? Astral travel and remote viewing.
No, that's different.
Astral travel is more of like an embodiment, like you kind of leave your body.
Yeah.
When you're
Like an
remote
out-of-body
viewing,
experience, right?
right? When you're
Yeah.
remote viewing, you sort of just see the area, like in your mind's eye.
Mhm.
It's similar but different.
Well, you explained it fairly well. It's right there. When you are remote viewing, it's your mind that is creating, but you are here.
Mhm.
But astral travel, you go there and see it.
Right. You're bringing it to you in
You
remote
actually
viewing. Astral
physically
travel
can
is you
touch-
go there.
Right. Okay. So you actually have the physical placement as
Yeah.
far as astral.
It's like when somebody has an
Mechanical
accident remote viewing, they become like comatose, right? Or they become where they're not like there anymore. If you have a accident while astral traveling, you die. Like your soul is gone. It
See, the
doesn't come
reason why
back.
I'm asking is I'm trying to put this into my theory about the wormholes and the personal portals. And I always said that there's got to be a way that these people, especially the missing people, that have come up missing all of a sudden with no reason, are jumping into this. And I think the physical body is actually being taken.
Right.
Well,
I think-
let me go back to the guy's question. He says, "Can they prevent you?" They cannot prevent me from astral traveling, but they could prevent me from entering certain places. And with the remote viewing, that is something that I don't do, but I've done just on the mastermind. Last time we did an experiment, and we saw that it worked. But I don't understand the concept behind it, up and beyond the mind. So I'm not so sure they can actually block you for that. But possible, I don't know.
I don't see how they could with remote
I
viewing.
don't think they'll be able to block you because we got 8 billion people.
Right.
And you would have to go through 8 billion people to find whoever's trying to remote view. And then amongst that, you got millions of people who are probably remote viewing. So it would be pretty difficult to stop somebody from doing so. But the astral travel I could see where they can prevent you from coming in to, like,
Right.
say, the White House, the Kremlin, or, whatever the case may be. I could see that, but from
maybe one way to do it, and this is going to sound really out there, but just coming to me, is if they use some kind of like nanotechnology to attack your brain and the synapses in your brain so they don't function properly, might be a way for them to I don't want to say prevent it, but hinder you from doing it.
Well, I
But
don't want to
that's-
say that on this show, but there's your COVID shot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but remember, if you're out there in your astral body, there is no brain there to be affected.
But that's true. That's true.
I think they've
Let's
already
try and stay away from the sea talk.
I
Let's-
just had to throw that in.
I know you did. I love you for it too. I mean, I saw we had a couple, quick sneak-ins today, but we won't go over any of them just to rehash things out. But that's absolutely right, though. It's absolutely right. So I can't. You can't be mad at the truth.
Yeah.
I
Truth
think
has no feelings.
they've already been working on this, and they have been for quite a long time to prevent us from remote viewing and from astral traveling and reaching, our higher state of consciousness by, first of all, the nuclear bombs that they've been blowing up every week for the last 75 years on this planet, the GMO foods, the fluoride in the water, the poison food that they feed us, the plastic food that they feed us. I think that's all part of culmination of an effort to keep us subdued so that we're not actively, remote viewing and astral traveling. Because imagine if half the world's population could astral travel, or if half the world's population could remote view.
Man, if people
They
caught
would
on to
lose the
that,
power that they have over us. They would lose everything, because then suddenly we would know the truth and people would know the truth. So, I think it's been happening for a while, and that's one of their ways of preventing us from accessing that higher state of consciousness.
the researchers said it too. They poison us to keep us dumbed down, and you are so correct. And think about it, Omar and guys. The fluoride that we've been drinking in our waters and things over the years, whatever. And we don't want to get on a tangent here, but it's very possible this is exactly like Omar was saying, what's been going on all these years.
Well, of course, there's programs in place to keep us to not reach our true potential, which is ultimately what it is. There's a bunch of different hindrances, and if we named them all, I'm sure we could get we could get so far before the whole thing got shut down. But it's true, and this is what when me and Omar are talking about this kind of stuff, and you too, Clarence and Aggie, is like we used to be so evolved from that this agenda that's been around for so long. We have de-evolved, and because of man itself, and now we're at this paradigm shift, to this precipice where we're starting to catch glimpses of that higher evolution that we could potentially get to, and we're working day in and day out to try and refine it to level up, as we say. We like to level up, but we're trying to level up. And while you would catch glimpses of it, it is not completely, for some people, it's completely all the time. But for a lot of us, we're still catching glimpses, and that sensation of that glimpse is like, wow, okay, what can I do to facilitate this all the time? And it's sort of breaking that programming and breaking that those programs that are essentially attacking you on every level, from your cells to your consciousness. And it truly is transcending all that with information, and again, knowing where you come from, because a man who doesn't know where he comes from is lost. That is the starting point of your origin, of where we started, and what that's actually like. History repeats itself. We could say these monikers all day long, and they all make sense in the grand scheme of things. Does that make sense?
Where do you think, Rob, that we actually started losing it? Where did we lose the reality of the touch? Because you're absolutely right. Think about it, with the Mayans, the Incas, and everybody else, and all the religious things they've had back in the day. We know that there was a spiritual
multifaceted attack. It's a multifaceted attack. So there was certain times where they clipped a little bit, then they clipped a little bit, then they clipped a little bit. Now they had more than half, and they went for the kill shot. You know what I mean?
Man, they did a hell of a job on it, no doubt about it.
Oh, without a doubt, man. I mean, it's everywhere now. If you look at the 1700s to the 1900s, in that 100 years, we were literally just like bombarded with everything from radiations to medications to, I mean, it's truly a weird thing. Like even in the 1700s, they used to use plant medicine. Maybe not all the time. They had some medications, but they were of a more natural sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? More holistically used. And it was more frontier man. Once the frontier man went away, man, it was completely over. It's completely over.
I think when we got into this, the mind space that we're at right now, with
you think the atomic age
or so years, with commercialization and everything that's taken place in the last 100 years, 150 years or so, since industrialization anyways, I think we've come to a point mentally as a society, and been programmed that way as well, with a helping hand, to only think of things from a tangible level, from a physical level and from the five sense level, and anything beyond that, if you can't touch it, smell it, hear it, then it doesn't exist, right? So for a lot of people, you know, that are trapped in that type of archaic thinking, for them, the you know, the idea of astral travel just simply doesn't exist. Remote viewing just simply doesn't exist.
No.
You know, daydreaming just simply doesn't exist because to them it's not tangible. And now, like I've seen a comment about the children that, and I mentioned something about that earlier as well, where we have
Right.
children being born today that are, you know, seriously advanced, where they have these psychic and these conscious gifts that they have that we didn't have. And we're hearing all this throughout every household across the world, that my children are so smart, my kids is doing this and this and this and that. So I think we're breaking through that shift and that paradigm shift of that left brain thinking, and really going into that right brain thinking, where we need to, you know, bring in you know, science and spiritualism together, because back in the day, science and spiritualism was one. And then, you know, Einstein came along and kind of just separated the one from the other, and then religion did that as well. But Einstein really, you know, put the nail in the coffin when he came up with his E equals MC2, which he actually didn't come up with. It was his wife or his cousin that came up with it. And he plagiarized that information and took it for himself, and then gave the money to his cousin or his wife or whatever it was that he got it from. Actually, Einstein didn't write that stuff. So it was then that, you know, I really solidified the thinking that we're in today, right? So now, thankfully, now we're going through the shift where people are beginning to realize that, hey, wait a minute, I do have the ability to use my consciousness for higher purposes, like, you know, make a long distance phone call or connect with a friend or consciously heal myself, or even to the point where, I'll give you an example. I sent a message to Rob last week. You know, it was, you know, I would say about plus 50, 55 in my apartment here, and my fan was going, and all my fan was doing was just blowing hot air around, and I was sitting there, and suddenly this download, I guess, came into my mind, and instead of you know, it was cool, right? And something instructed me in my mind to say cool, like I would say you know, like like that. So what I started to do was I started going cool, cool. And when I did that, when I was moving my hand like this, I literally changed the atmosphere and the environment in my room, that went from getting you know, hot wind being blown around from my fan, where suddenly the air became very cool and my room began to cool down. And as soon as I stopped that, the hot air started to breeze again, and then I started to chant the cool again. And this time I actually took a voice recording of it and sent it to Rob and said I just did a magic trick. And then from that point on, when I continued to do that throughout the entire evening, the temperature in my room dropped. There was hot air outside, and my fan was blowing hot air, but then when I started to do that, it started to give me cool air. So I was able to manipulate my environment just simply by the conscious thought, and using sound vibration to change the molecule and the atoms in my room. And it worked, right? You know, it totally worked for me. You know, I don't know, maybe it's because I believed it and it turned cold, or, you know, I was just so hot that I wanted to be cool. You know,
Yeah.
Hey,
Either way, it worked.
it
Yeah.
Either
worked.
way, it worked.
Yeah.
And it was the day it needed to work. So I'm just going to say that day. It was definitely
Awesome.
a day that needed to work. And he said to me, he's like, you'll never believe what just happened. I said, oh, I believe it. 110% I believe it, because he's an enlightened person and he understands that those frequencies manipulate your frequency, in
Yep.
turn makes you, you know, a little more comfortable, a little bit more at ease. And he shifted and manifested the reality that he wanted, which was just a clear indication of that. And it was absolutely incredible. I was like, I knew you could. I knew you could, man.
I'm gonna try that one. 108 degrees. Yep, I'm gonna
Yeah,
try
give
that.
it a shot. Instead of an right? Instead of an just use the same note or the same you know, harmony or the frequency that comes along with the and then just use it for the cool. and it. I noticed I started to move my hand like this to turn into a vortex, right? And then that's kind of
A polar vortex.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you want to try that, or maybe you don't have to because you're already highly consciously aware guy, right? So for you probably don't even have to and just simply just think about it, and it'll just start to turn cool. Right? You wrote a book on this shit, man.
Yeah,